Hey, boys and girls, this is your core video. This week, we're going to be doing a really fun project. You are going to get to make a timeline about your life. So we're going to talk about what a timeline is, and we're going to talk about what to do for your project today. So inside your binder, you will find this little piece of paper. And on day one, it'll tell you exactly what you need to do today. Okay, so go ahead and look at that and fill it out. But today we're going to talk about history. How many of you know what history is? How many of you know what history is? What is history? Right? What is history? How many of you know what that is? Okay, a couple of you. So let's begin by talking about, I want to read to you this little story, okay? Just listen. What is history? Do you know where you were born? Were you born at a hospital or at home? How much did you weigh when you were born? What did you have to eat for your first birthday? You don't remember being born, do you? And you probably don't remember your first birthday party. So how can you find the answers to these questions? Well, you can ask your parents. They can tell you about things that happened a long time ago. Before you were old enough to remember, they can tell you stories about when you were a baby. How many of you remember when you were a baby? I don't remember when I was a baby. And I don't think you do either. You were tiny. You don't recall. Your parents can tell you stories about when you were a baby because they remember. These stories are your history. So the stories that your parents remember, the things that happened in your life before, right? Your whole life, that's your history. Those things that have happened in your life from before, that's your history, right? History it's just kind of like things that have happened to you, right? In the past. It's in the past. So these stories are your history. Your history is a story of what happened to you from the moment you were born, all the way up to now. You can learn this history by listening to your parents. They remember what happened when you were born, and they probably took pictures of you when you were a baby. You can learn even more about your history from these pictures. Did you have hair? Were you chubby or were you thin? Were you smiling or did you frown? What were you wearing? Do you remember those clothes? You have a history. And so do your parents. Where were they born? Were they born at home or at a hospital? Where did they go to school? What did they like to eat? Who are their best friends? How can you find the answers to these questions? Well, you can ask your parents. And I actually want to encourage you, ask your parents about their history today at the dinner table. Ask your parents about their history. Say, Mom and Dad, we're learning about history. And I want to know what your history is, right? You can ask them, were you born at a hospital? Were you born at home? Who are your best friends? When did you do your first Holy Communion? Have you done your first Holy Communion? What did you feel when you received Jesus? When did you get married? right? You can ask them their history. You can ask them questions, and I want you to ask them. You can even ask them about your history. Was I tiny, Mom? Was I big? When did I learn how to walk? Was I tiny? Was I small? Was I bigger? What was my first word? Okay. So you can ask your parents about your history, and you can ask your parents about their history. But what if your parents don't remember their history? What if they only remember your history? What if they don't remember their history? Well, then they can ask their parents, your grandparents. So now let's ask a little harder question. Your grandmother, your grandma, was once a little girl. One time she was a little girl, a long time ago, right? What is her history like? How much did she weigh when she was born? Did she cry a lot? When did her first tooth come out? What was her favorite thing to eat? What was your grandma's favorite thing to eat when she was a little girl? You would have to ask her mother, your great grandma. And you could look at baby pictures of your grandma. But what if you can't talk to your great grandma? And what if you don't have any baby pictures of your grandmother? Is there another way you can find out about your grandmother's history? There might be. Perhaps your grandmother wrote a letter to a friend when she was born. Perhaps your grandmother's grandmother's, or your grandmother's mother, so your great grandma, wrote a letter to a friend when your grandma was born and said, "Dear Elizabeth," she might have written, "my baby was born at home on September 13th. She weighed 7 pounds and has a soft little fuzzy black hair. She certainly cries a lot. I hope she'll sleep through the night soon." So perhaps your grandmother's mother wrote a friend a letter and wrote all of this information. Now suppose you find this letter years later. Even though you can't talk to your great-grandmother, you can learn the history of your grandmother from her letter. You could also learn history if your great-grandmother kept a diary or a journal where she wrote about things that happened to her a long time ago. In this book, we're going to learn about the history of people. So we're talking about history. So I just told you, what is history? What is history? We just read a little bit about what history was. What is history, boys and girls? Yes, it's the things that have happened to you a long time ago all the way to now, right? And everyone has a history. You have a history. Your mom has a history. Your mom's mom has a history. Your mom's mom's mom has a history, right? Miss Santana has a history. Mrs. Cruz has a history. Let's say baby Luke, if you know Mrs. Cruz's little children, baby Luke has a history. Everybody has a history. So what I want you to do today is to think for your project. I want you to think about some things, some events that have happened to you and that you went through, right, in your history, some things that are important to your history, right? What is important to your history? Well, maybe the day you were born. That's an important day for your history. That's when your history started, right? The day you were born. So So I want you to think about a couple of things. So maybe let's think about some things. Maybe the day you were born. What's another thing that's important in your life, in your history? Maybe the day you were baptized. Do you know what day that is? How do you know that it happened? Well, you can go ask Mom, right? Mom, when was I baptized? Let's say Mom says, I don't know, I forgot. Well, guess what she can do? She can go look at your baptismal certificate. They give you a paper that says Johnny was baptized on September 21st, 2020, right? So you can go look at your baptismal certificate to see when you were baptized. What day was it? What if you don't have your baptismal certificate? Well, maybe you still have some pictures, right? I want you to find those pictures so that you can see your history, right? So that you can see, yes, that did happen. So let's think. We have the day you were born, your baptism. That's the day you finally became a daughter or a son of God, right? So that's important. Very, very important. Let's say maybe another important day in your life was the day, let's see, the day you started walking. Maybe there's a video and your parents can show you. Let's see, maybe the day you started talking, or your first word, or perhaps the first day of school is an important day in your history. What about the first time you lost your tooth? That's an important day in your history, right? The first day you learned how to ride a bike. You think of them. There cannot be a wrong answer. I want you to pick 7 to 8 important dates, 7 to 8 important days of your history, right? You can't go wrong with that. You can pick anything you want. Make sure that you're doing this project with your parents, okay? So you're going to need to fill out this piece of paper right here, okay? That's all you have to do today. Hey, boys and girls, don't forget to ask your parents about their history. Don't forget to ask your parents what they remember about your history, because I'm sure they remember plenty. Okay, boys and girls, have a great rest of your day. Totus tuus, Maria.